Oh, I knew that was gonna get Jason involved in the chat. He's not a big fan of recycling. Right away, recycling. Yeah, I remember when we moved to the farm and we had a chat with this old guy who's owned a trash company, and we were sorting everything, and he goes, "Yeah, I can tell you something." He said, "None of that goes anywhere you think it does." Ooh, brain exploded. We're like, oh my gosh, you do the deep dive into it, and yep, sure enough, recycling is not being recycling the way you think it is. Anyway, let's get to our guest. So Mark Squibb is an inventor and a developer of brain optimization systems. Now, what does that mean? Well, when you look further into the Live O2 system, he's helped people in a number of different ways. So, we're going to get into a little bit about what the system is, who it helps, how it helps, and you can learn more about how you can connect to it. Mark, welcome to Naturally Inspired Radio today. How are you doing?
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I want to dive right into it because, like I said, I've looked at your website. I saw your setup at the Naturally Inspired Health Summit, so I've got an idea of it. But I want everybody to understand exactly what the Live O2 system is. So take it away and introduce us to it.
Okay, well, let me start out with a really simple. Most people have heard of hyperbaric, which is the pressure vessel that you go inside, and it basically dissolves oxygen into your body like a sponge. LiVO2 is like a turbocharger. So, like for example, LiVO2 super oxygenates the body. Like for example, our Brain O2 protocol, which enhances, and we've got some images I'll share later on. But basically, it can create a pulse or oxygen delivery to the brain somewhere in the ballpark of 24 times normal. And we have tests, and I'll share one of that with you later as well, that show after one of our workouts a 29% increase in energy production in the brain. It works throughout the body, so not only does it improve the brain. It works throughout the body. Like, for example, if you measure somebody's IQ after they train, they'll be between 5 and 15% smarter. And I also have with us and uploaded to Jason a cognitive result that we got last Friday for a young man in Greeley who my son trained. And he had some, I'll call it chemical induced injury from when he was a child. And we had a substantial reversal of that in 6 workouts, which is under two hours worth of physical work. The system basically is a turbocharger for exercise. Um, there are several sports teams, including Tampa, that carry as many as 6 of these systems before they play games like the Super Bowl. And so it's the secret weapon because of the neurological tune-up that when people go out, if your brain's on, your nervous system is on, you're going to perform better, as well as, but it doesn't matter what you do. Or if you have a problem, like you whacked your noggin, it puts so much oxygen in the brain, it speeds up the healing, as well as makes you smarter. We actually have a case study that shows an individual that was severely injured in Afghanistan, and we've got a functional well, I won't say it's completely done, but we've got a TV show about him and his reversing his paralysis, which is
Wow.
supposed to be impossible.
Right. Wow. So tell me about oxygen then. Why is a super oxygenated being a better being? Like, what is this doing for the body?
Well, I don't know what happens. And again, it's not about super oxygenation. Okay. The thing that happens is called stress. Okay. And as we go through life, if you look at the status, the age related statistics, they tell us, goodness, you lose 1% per year of your body's ability to produce energy. Well, it turns out this happens in the brain. And so as you get older and as you have stress events, a tiny fraction of your body gets shut down, as in the vascular system is injured in a way that it ceases to become able to deliver energy, or I'm sorry, deliver blood, thus delivering oxygen. And that's at about 1%.
That's so interesting because I'm a big fan of traditional Chinese medicine, and I'm always thinking about the idea of traditional Chinese medicine is stagnation, right? It's your energy flow is stagnant, right? And so you work with the meridians to kind of open that up. So it's kind of the same concept in a way, right? Like I think about a stagnant pond, right? When it doesn't have a pump in it and it's just sitting there and it's growing algae and nothing's moving, it gets all scummy and gunked up. You blow oxygen into the pond, and what happens, right? We see it clear. Is it a similar concept?
Yeah, almost identical. So what happens is you have stress injury, which causes inflammation in the capillaries, which are the little pipes, the tiniest part of the pipes at the venous end of the capillary. So the blood goes into the capillary on from the artery and it comes out in the vein. And then when you have a stress event, specifically for shutdown of blood flow for 90 minutes, you trigger inflammation, so the capillary gets smaller. And once the capillary gets smaller, red blood cells can't go through there anymore, so they'll go around bypasses called shunts. And as this inflammation piles up in the body, the cells that are fed by these capillaries lose their oxygen supply. And when they do that, they go dormant. Okay, so the reason LiVo2 works in at one level is it delivers so much oxygen that it opens up the vascular system. So when Jason presents some of the cognitive recovery panels, what happens is it basically busts through like a Drano and opens the blood flow. And when you open the blood flow, parts of the brain just switch back on.
Wow.
And okay, and it happens immediately. We've had it. I have one. I sent you test results of a lady here in LaPorte, or Bellevue, that her brain opened up after having had 3 concussions over 18 months, and the recovery timeline was 2 hours.
Wow. Wow. Do you want to put up some of those images, Jason? Do you want to put up the red? It sounds like you have a red blood cell image or something. You want to put that up first? Or no, some of
Okay,
these.
yeah, this would be Jill. So I don't know if we can make it so you can see it across. There you go. Okay, this is the lady in Bellevue, and I'm going to help you understand what we're looking at.
Okay,
This
great.
is a neurocognitive panel. It is the same panel that the U.S. military uses pre and post deployment for U.S. Special Forces.
Okay.
The test is difficult to take because it gives you all kinds of different tests. So, like, for example, it's got composite memory, verbal memory, visual memory, psychomotor speed, reaction time, complex attention. So, if you're going across the top, these red scores are basically mean that's a part of in this case of Jill, where she hit her head and she had a bruise and the blood flow to her brain was shut down or damaged or inhibited enough that those parts of her brain weren't working well. So if you go across the top line, we took that test, or she took the test at 11:12 in the morning. And so then we trained her on LiVo2. It turns out she's a pretty solid athlete. And then if we take a look, the 4 white boxes were all memory tests. I can't do the memory test on the same day because there's a thing. But if you go across the other line, you'll see there's a red box on the top line and a green box on the line underneath it. The red to green transition shows that blood flow was restored to those parts of the
Yeah.
brain and it started working again.
Yeah, so I just want to make clear everybody knows what you mean when you say train. So I've seen the equipment. So it's actually a bike. But can you explain what it looks like to people so they know
Sure.
what you mean?
Yeah. So basically, the system is an air supply, and it provides air to you while you work out. And there's a switch that enables you to move from a simulated high altitude to a very rich oxygen environment. So it's basically a mask that you wear where you work out, and the mask will either give you a boatload of oxygen or air that's had part of the oxygen removed. And so what we do is we trick the body. So like in the protocol with Jill here, we starved her of oxygen, activated her, she worked out, and her body quadrupled the amount of blood to the brain. Then we threw a
Fascinating.
switch and we put
Let's
6 times more oxygen in the blood.
Let's stop right there. And when we come back, we'll have Mark explain more. This is a real solution for health, everybody. Visit liveO2.com. Stay tuned. More with Mark when we come back. I can't wait to get into more with Mark Squibb because he's the inventor and developer of the brain optimization system called liveO2. So visit liveO2.com. That's liveO2.com for more information. But now we're going to get back into this conversation with Mark about things like brain injury. We're going to be talking about the power of oxygen and what it does for healing in the body. So Mark, pick up please where you left off there. Did you want to go to the next graph?
Yeah, let's do the next graph.
Okay.
All right. So the reason this is important because it has very significant implications around brain energy. What we're looking at here is a literal real-time graph of the energy production in my brain as I was doing a LiveO2 session. The instrumentation of this shined a light into my skull at the surface of my frontal cortex and basically measured the oxygen coming in and the oxygen going out. Okay, so it's just a light, so it didn't hurt. But what you're looking at here is you'll see a 0 on the left-hand side, and that when I challenge myself in a sprint with low oxygen, you'll see that my brain energy kind of went down. And then I switched to oxygen, then it bounced back up. And then I challenged myself again, it went down, back up, down, back up. What matters in the graph is you'll notice a series of higher highs and higher lows. After the 18-minute workout, at the end, you'll see the green line across, and if you measure the numbers, my brain was producing 29% more energy at the end of the workout than it was at the beginning.
Is that the key timing, 18 minutes, and why?
No, you could do it in a few minutes. It's just your workout. So our kind of baseline workout is about 15 minutes. But in this case, I had the experiment. So, and then we've got different workouts. So to your audience, LiveO2 requires no chemistry. It uses only air, and you plug it in, and basically the system separates the air into oxygen rich and oxygen reduced. And then you'll do a workout. This particular workout is an example, but when I say it supercharges the brain, this is a literal illustration. So in the last example I showed you with the brain tests, this is what happened in Jill's brain. Okay, but if you have a concussion or a bruise where there's blood flow restricted to an area, this will normally restore the blood flow and restore the brain function.
What about blood clots and things of that nature? Have you had any do you have any stories about blood clots at helping?
Well,
with
we have
clots?
A lot of stories about stroke recovery, which end up either being inclusion. The case of Ben Menifee, he was the Afghanistan person. He had a severe brain injury, and he effectively is well on his way to recovering from a brain bleed, which would be a very severe version of injury. So LiveO2 has become the standard, or at least an element of the standard, of dementia, Alzheimer's, as well as neurological recovery, because it works so fast. People can do it at home. We sell it as an at-home workout platform. It can be used in clinics. There are quite a few clinics around that use it, but it is the standard for how you want to recover your brain. And so
And
Anything that blocks blood flow to the brain, it will usually help with.
that's fascinating. And we're hearing a lot more about metabolic health. You know, this is the conversation that's taking place in the nation. Really, people are starting to understand that you got to get to root cause when it comes to disease in the body, chronic disease, and I know we have to be so careful because we live under the medical mafia. So we can't, we're not making claims here. We're not saying it cures this or it cures that. We're saying, that it's another tool in your toolkit, right?
Correct.
What about metabolic health? Mark, what's its impact on in that regard?
Would you please bring up the next image? Not that one, the other one, the one that talked about the red body one, if you received it. This is another case. Okay, well, while we're here, and I'll just speak to the slide, this is the same story, except that if you had a concussion a long time ago, this is after 41 years.
Oh, wow. So there's no time frame here, Mark?
There does not appear to be a time frame. So, this process, like for example, if you had a concussion, if this lady had a concussion, this is a before after neurological panel. She did the Live O2 workout. I think it was about a 30-day time window. She didn't exercise a lot, so it took her about 3 weeks to condition. Then we did the brain oxygenation protocol, and this is her neurological panel. You'll note also the red to green transitions, and she reported that her her lifestyle adjusted accordingly. So she basically could remember where she left the keys.
That's fascinating. I want to go quickly back to the young guy in Greeley that you helped. How many? You said those were 5 sessions, right?
Yep.
He did
6
sessions, 6 sessions. So what did that look like? How long were the workouts? And
his workouts were 15 to 18 minutes.
Okay.
And so what he did was he just put on a mask and got on, and then he trained easy the first time, a little harder the second time, a little harder the third time, and so forth. And so the process is called punch through. His real problem is called osteonecrosis. And so we're doing an experiment with him to see what it's going to do to resolve that. But his mom had mentioned that, he had some injury when he was younger. And that, so we sponsored him taking the neurological panel. And so he came to the office 6 times over the past, I guess, since June 26th, which is when we did his first panel. And then last week on Thursday, he took the second test, and you could see the difference in his scores. I don't know if we showed him or not yet, but his scores are the same, which is he had the same telltale red to green transitions. So he spent less than 2 hours exercising, and his brain recovered.
Fascinating. So we've talked about traumatic injury, we've talked about chronic illnesses that are going on, but what just like for prevention?
Well, that's where we're going in the next slide.
Oh, okay.
So the answer, okay, and I'm going to give you this, and it's going to sound crazy, but we have north of 10,000 systems in the field, probably as many as 15,000, and that many users. And the users that come back and report to us that after having used the system, exercising with it for 2 to 6 months, they generally report a 15 to 25 year reversal in functional age.
And how's that measured?
Just like, we ask the questions like, so how many years ago was it when you felt as good as you do today? How many years ago was it when your list of medications and diseases was as it is today? And that ends, so that this touches your metabolic question, which is basically punching through and restoring the blood flow throughout the body that you've gradually lost over time, wipes or reverses 15 years plus worth of loss of function. Okay, so when you take a look at the body, a vital body that has good blood flow, has good immune system access, isn't going to be able to, or it's not going to incubate the diseases. So if you go
Mm-hmm.
look at Warburg's research about cancer, he said, well, cancer evolves in a low oxygen environment.
Yes.
If
Mm-hmm.
you erase the low oxygen environment, then the body bounces back. And one of the first things I approached you guys about a few weeks ago was we had a young man, 23 years old, who was injured by an injection. And anyway, he came up with a case of turbo testicular cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'll tell you the story. He showed up at the hospital. His groin was hurting so bad on Thursday. They said, my goodness, you have turbo cancer. We're going to do emergency surgery on Saturday morning. And then they hooked him up to the chemo line on Monday morning.
Wow. It's very urgent.
Well, very urgent. He was sitting there, looked down the line of people, and he said, I can't do this. He left. 3 weeks later, he goes back. He goes to see his aunt, who trained him just using this optimization of his immune system.
Mm-hmm.
He goes back to the hospital 3 weeks later and says, wow, we can't find your cancer.
Incredible. Incredible.
So he asked him one question. Testicular cancer. He says, can I have my nut back?
My goodness. I mean, of course, we can't make claims here, but what I always want people to
That's
understand.
not a claim. LiveO2 does nothing
Yeah.
around any sort of disease. It only optimizes structure function,
What
restoring
you
blood
already
flow
have.
to your body. The physiological effects for brain are optimizing the blood delivery or oxygen delivery to the brain. All of
Yeah.
these effects are just about restoring oxygen to the brain that has been damaged by stress-related injury that has happened through time that is medically unrecognized.
Listen, I want to make sure everybody has your website. Mark is going to be visiting us ongoing. So you're going to have the opportunity to learn a whole lot more about LiveO2. We're going to talk more about sleep. We're going to talk about addiction. We're going to talk about a ton of things. Visit liveO2.com. That's liveO2.com. You want to connect to Mark Squibb. This is fascinating stuff. Mark, I look forward to having you back on again. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.